Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the both departments. I'll do a quick fire round and try and answer it as quick as you can because I want to let others in. 123,000 farmers farm the land and make a living without derogation. Why are we concentrating on a derogation for 5,000 or 6,000 farmers in this country?
Mr. Nolan?
Well,
sorry.
work away, sorry. I was just going to say, I think there's a need for action across all farm types, all situations. It will vary, obviously, depending on the type of enterprise that individual farmers are.
Why are we, if 123,000 can make a living, be it at dairy or be it at beef or be it at sheep, why are we going for 6,000 to get a derogation?
Well, you need a nitrates action programme irrespective of whether we apply for a derogation or not.
And if we weren't applying for a derogation to go for the 250, would it be less punitive measures on the other 123,000?
Not necessarily, Jack.
2/3 of dairy cows are on derogation farms. So the derogation is very, very economically important to Ireland. And down in Moore Park at the open day, they said that the more grass you can get into a cow, the grass you're feeding, the grass fed, is a good indicator of profitability.
Can you give us that figure again? Two-thirds of
dairy cows are on derogation farms.
In 7,000 farms, is that right?
7,000 is a bit low, Deputy Fitzmaurice, because some farmers will be exporting the slurry to keep themselves under the 170.
Yeah,
but 7,000 will go up substantially this year.
Up to 11.5 to 12, and it will go up this year. We're expecting that no matter what soil type, Bernard said it earlier on, every farmer has a role to play. So in the west of Ireland, for example, we're finding that there are problems with phosphorus and on heavy soils in the south and southeast. The measures are targeted towards intensive farmers. So, for example, intensive farmers have to fence the watercourse, they have compulsory use of lime, compulsory soil sampling and compulsory nutrient management planning. So there is a tighter net around them, and they also have a 5% rate of inspection compared to a non-derogation farmer who only has a 1% chance of inspection.
To the Department of Environment, say in the waste out of the sewage treatment plants in Dublin, Cork, Limerick, do you account for that and do you tie up with the department? The EPA said you do.
This is the sludge, Deputy, is it?
From the wastewater treatment plants, yeah, where the sewerage goes in, yeah?
Yeah, so sludge can be converted into biosolids, which can be used as fertiliser on land.
Yeah, but I'm asking about the accountability of it.
Yeah, and we're looking at that as part of the next nitrates action programme.
But is it done at the moment, is the question I'm asking, because the EPA said it was between you and the Department of Agriculture.
Irish Water produce a sludge report and a sludge management report every year, and then the sludge delivered to land is reported to the local authorities, but it doesn't. It's not reported to our department.
The Department of Agriculture, I presume it is.
Mr. Nolan?
No. The sewage sludge regulation used to be part of cross-compliance. It's not anymore. So we don't get any list of farmers unless we inspect a farmer and they voluntarily tell us they're using sludge. We don't know about it.
All right. In the line of what's being promoted, and Deputy Carl touched on it earlier on, I have no problem with some of the figures I'm looking at and listening to you, Mr. Nolan, what you're saying. But there's a huge concern at the moment, and it won't be the market that will produce it. Basically, in some farms, the calf is surplus to requirements, to put it very honestly to you. And if the danger on the figures is that if the more Jersey type calf comes around the place with higher solids in the cow, you are going to get the most hardest souled little animal that ever was and cause a major problem in our beef sector. Have you any plans to resolve that in case that happens before as the man says, the horse bolts?
Thanks, Deputy. So there are animal welfare standards in place, part of EU and national legislation, but also as part of quality assurance schemes, animal welfare is carefully looked at, and I'd say this will be something that industry will have to get more involved in as well to make sure it's protecting our image. And there haven't been animal welfare issues found on Irish farms, definitely not in comparison.
I'm not talking about animal welfare. I know that every person treats animals 100%. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is the quality of the animal, the going forward, because the cow might produce higher solids. Are you looking at any part of that we don't go down a road and maybe gaining with solids and losing part of our beef industry, especially in light of some of the comments that has been out in the media by some people in Teagasc, where the stated that people should be reared in these so-called dairy calves?
I suppose Teagasc are investing in calf to beef programmes, because we have increased by 500,000 cows, dairy cows, over the last number of years, and it can be run profitably. As regards the Jersey cow and the slippage, like 2/3 or 3/4 of Irish cows are currently in the middle category. So if somebody's going to go down to the lower category, that's a choice. Generally speaking, we think it's either organic farmers or those that are on once a day, or that type of animal that's in that lower category, and we don't see slippage going there.
Right. In relation to low emission slurry spreading, you talk about water quality, guys, and this is coming from, look, I'm a Mickey Mouse contractor, but we're a contractor in slurry. You talk about free drain on land. The reality of it is, and you would know this well, that when you go putting out slurry with low emission slurry spreading, you have to put in a heap of water, and you have to get it down to basically water level, the way the macerator at the back can spread it. Is there any trials done to see, is this going down through the soils quicker? Because obviously if you get a heap of rain or a heap of water going down through it, it will go down and into the rock quicker, which will affect the water quality, and it'll run off quicker. My honest opinion is that it's actually going to cause problems. Have you any trials done on that?
So there would be research to show the watery slurry will actually be taken up quicker, the nitrogen in it. But what you're pointing towards is how important it is to spread it when there's growth. Like outside, it's dark already at 8 o'clock. If it's watery and you spread it now, there's more danger of it being lost than if it's spread next March and it's watery.
Yeah, but if you have free draining soils and you have watery thing, it will go down through it quicker. And if it goes down through it quicker, obviously it goes into a stream that a bit quicker. Is there any tests done in regard to that you are better put out a thicker type slurry?
To the best of my knowledge, watery slurry can be lost quicker like that, particularly if you get heavy rainfall, but it's also more likely to be taken up by the plants. So all things being equal, you're better with a watery slurry being applied in the growing season, which will be next March, April, when you get the maximum uptake. Like if you look at the grass growth curve, it'll kick off in January, and anything applied from then on when soil and weather conditions are right. Like it's not going to go down through the soil that quickly as long as the plant is growing. It depends on the land for definite, but if you apply it at the right time of year, the key is applying it at the right time of year, no matter what type of equipment you're applying it with. But I would say anyone that's using low emission equipment keeps going back to use it again, because they can see the value that they're getting out of slurry, and also that they're getting back in to graze the grass quicker because you have less contamination. But we need to move, sorry.
That's grand, thanks. In relation to, and you might clarify this, Mr. Nolan, say a farmer at the moment has more cows than space, we'll say, in the line of storage, and they weren't able to get in under TAMS. If they go in under, because I think this needs to be, farmers need to know this, if they go in under to make more room for, we'll say, soil water, will they get a grant now, is the proposal, is that correct?
What we're told is that the first thing that the department does is check whether you have enough storage capacity for soil, water and slurry. If you do, then you can be granted to get more. But the EU regulation, based on the polluter pays principle, says that if you're non-compliant at the minute, the department can't grant aid you. The department...
Even for soil water?
No, even for soil water. If you have sufficient storage at the minute, and the departments are proposing that we'd increase, that soil water storage would increase up to a month's requirement, you can be granted for the extra storage that's needed. But if you're non-compliant, you can't be granted.
Under the CAP proposals, but it's touching on ye as well, there's new proposals coming out in the line of sowing trees and spreading with GPS fertiliser, which would be a help to water quality, and basically sterilising a piece of ground. I think there's something like 5 different examples, which would be also referring basically back to water quality. Are those options available up to someone on 170 kgs, and is that your understanding, or do you deal with that?
Mr. Harris,
so I think I presume you're referring to the new eco scheme measures that have been proposed under the next CAP. So they will be open to all farmers to participate. Look, the details of those are still being finalised, but this is what's currently out for consultation, the 5 measures that you've suggested there.
Is there, to the Department of Environment, is there any proposals where you will back the likes of anaerobic digesters to promote them, grant aid them, and get them that they'll pellet, say, when they have the slurry used or the grass used or whatever? Is there any proposals there?
Not from our department and the Department of Housing. It'd be probably more likely the Department of Environment and Climate Change, unless agriculture.
There's a pilot project here that was announced in the budget, as far as I'm aware, but it would be up to the Department of Climate Communications to set the refit tariff, because I think that's what you're asking, Deputy. Do these pay? And that's where the rate is set. So it's outside our control.
Right, and the other thing in relation to the water quality and fencing off water courses, is the department aware, and this would be probably Mr. Nolan, is the department aware that, say, on areas like where that's designated, you have to get planning permission to put up a fence, that you can't just rock up and start hammering down a stake? Is the department aware that on commonages this is a problem? Or is it solely on derogation that it has to be fenced off? Could they explain what they're thinking about in that in relation to water quality?
So it's currently solely on intensively stocked farms. So those over 170 kilos per hectare, that's about 11,500 farms. And they're mainly dairy farms. And a lot of them would have them fenced, I'd imagine, for biosecurity anyway. There isn't any proposal or any suggestion that anyone on designated land would have to fence the watercourse for the exact reasons that you said, that you'd have to get planning permission. In the past, some of those farmers had problems putting up fencing, you know, because they had to go to court and so on. So that's accepted and acknowledged.
Is it a worry, thank you, is it a worry, and this is my final question because I want to let others in, is it a worry for the department that, say, the EPA was in earlier and they were talking about a section of the country that was, you know, look at the water quality was affected in it with nitrates. Does Mr. Nolan or anybody in the department, can they confirm, there's a theory out there, and I don't know, you probably know this, or the Department of Environment, you have the stats back, is 50% of all fertilisers in Ireland used by 18,000 dairy farmers, and the other 103,000 or 10,000 use the other 50%. Is that sort of pie in the sky stuff, or is that accurate?
Based on the Teagasc National Farm Survey, that's accurate, that 50% of the chemical nitrogen is used by dairy farmers because they have a higher demand for grass. They're growing, on average, much more than a beef farmer or a sheep farmer is growing or needs to grow, so what you're saying is true.
And is there a concern, say, when you talk about what Mr. Ledden showed us there in maps and what the EPA were saying, is there a concern that with the derogation that the water quality with the nitrogen, if it is, say, which the are, appears to be a lot of, say, fairly intensive dairy farms in some of those areas, is it a concern that the proposals you'd be doing may not work effectively if that's the situation at the moment?
We need behavioural change on farms, Deputy. Somebody referred earlier on to the levels of compliance. So we need farmers to be doing this because they understand it's going to save them money and also protect the environment, not because they think there's somebody coming from the department or the local authority. All the measures that are proposed here and that are in the current programme are based on science and based on Teagasc research. Up to 100 kilos per hectare of nitrogen, or about 3 bags of can an acre, 2 bags of urea, could be saved from being applied on grassland, on dairy farms. And that would definitely have a huge impact on water quality. I said it earlier, we genuinely believe if the package of measures that we're talking about here are implemented on farms, we will see the trend in water quality stabilise and start to improve. We won't.
Am I not correct in saying, Mr. Nolan, though, that if I am a farmer that has a single farm payment and I lease it out to Paul Daly, and I lease it out to him, and I'm farming away there that I don't make a single farm payment application, that I'm not subject to any nitrates. Isn't that correct?
You're not subject to any inspections by the department for cross-compliance if you have no basic payment.
So I'm not subject to anyone looking at my nitrates?
Well, the local authorities might call out to you if you're in a high-risk area, but the department won't be unless you're in some scheme
but
or for animals.
No one will write out a letter to me that I'm gone over my nitrates because they don't know.
Well, if we don't have the land area, we can notify the local authority that you have a very high nitrogen, but if we don't have a BPS application, we have nothing to divide your nitrogen by, so we can't calculate your stocking rate.
And is that being looked at?
We are looking at how, if there are issues, because some farmers are saying the average dairy farmer gets 20,000 in basic payment, and is it worth their while to get that or get 5 extra cows if they're being asked to, store extra slurry and so on? So enforcement and implementation of these will be a major part of the revised River Basin Management Plan that will be prepared by my colleagues in the Department of Housing with our input.
25 very
Lovely.
good cows.
Good. Thank you.
Well,
no, you're all right. Okay, Deputy Fitzmaurice.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay.